diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Monday, June 25th, 2018, almost to the end of the month, coming up on that 4th of July holiday. And I'm really looking forward to the fireworks display the Navy will put on down there at Pearl Harbor because of RIMPAC, which gets going this week as well. Anyway, we have got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. Now, a couple of reminders. This Wednesday in our third hour, Don Wiskin from Extendivite will be our guest to talk about his very wonderful product, which both Claire and I are using. Thursday, we're going to have Kenneth Amaduri on talking about AI and its implications. And just to give you a little bit of heads up, Friday's show is going to be a replay because Claire and I have got something that we're doing over the weekend, and we're not going to be available to take the microphone on Friday. So a little time away, a little staycation. We need the rest here. But I'm sure you'll understand here. Anyway, getting on to the war zones, a lot of stuff going on. The government troops are making rapid gains in southern Syria, and apparently militants in 11 settlements surrendered to the Syrian Arab Army and declared their readiness to fight ISIS and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly the Jabhat al-Nusra. And this is according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So these jihadis are willing to basically come on over and turn against their former associates. And more about that a little bit later in the talking points here. Interestingly enough, for all the talk about the U.S. warning Syria not to go into the southwest, the U.S. has now reversed its position and said that they do not intend to intervene militarily in southwestern Syria. At least that's what they're saying. I think what it means is there will be no overt intervention, but the covert supplying of the rebels will probably continue. And the rebel groups are kind of small. And Assad is won his war, is basically what's going on here. And this is going to be seen as a military defeat for the United States, which is why the United States is desperate to find some justification for going back on in there. Because when you're fighting multiple wars as part of a grand scheme of conquering the globe, your first defeat basically ends it. What support for the wars the U.S. government has among the American people is going to simply evaporate. That's why the U.S. is hanging on in Afghanistan. That's why they're still in Syria. They don't feel that they can be seen to have a defeat, and yet they're not doing well in either of these countries. Actually, they're not doing well in most of the countries they've gone into. They're just mired in these swamps, if you will. Can't make progress, can't get out. And these are against nations that really do not have strong militaries to defend themselves. which tells us that for all the vast sums of money that have been spent on the American war machine, we're not ready, we're not capable of going up against a true military peer like Russia or China. Meanwhile, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is out there saying that the U.S. is trying to fan up this whole chemical weapons thing as a pretext for another intervention. And he's reminding everybody that the Syrian government surrendered its stockpile of chemical weapons in 2014 to a joint mission led by the United Nations and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which oversaw the destruction of the weaponry. And this was a deal that was brokered by Vladimir Putin, who is out there proving he's a global statesman. Now, interestingly enough, there are clashes being reported between two of the U.S.-backed militant groups in northeastern Syria. The Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces exchanged fire with Raqqa Liwa al-Thawar Arab militant group. Both of these groups are supported by Washington, D.C. So now they're starting to fight amongst themselves. They've lost a unified command and structure, and everybody's just basically warring amongst themselves. I don't even know what they're fighting over, probably trying to grab what assets they can and skedaddle for the border. Meanwhile, the Kurds are apparently getting involved in northern Syria as well. They still want to carve out a piece of Syria for their nation, and the Turkish army and the allied militants are fighting back. And apparently the Kurdish militias forces are quite strong. It's a heavy offensive in the Afrin region. And the sources said Ankara forces have started closing off the streets in the town of Jandaris in northeastern Aleppo. So still a lot of fighting over there. Now, speaking of Turkey, they just had their elections. Erdogan won, and everybody is screaming it was a rigged election because they don't like Erdogan. And police actually found a car just full of forged ballot papers. They arrested 3 people whose car was loaded with these sacks just overflowing with phony ballots. And this is adding fuel to the speculation that Erdogan stole the election. We're going to take a break to do a shout out to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Down on the Israeli border, pro-Assad troops have taken over an abandoned United Nations observation post in the no man's land between the Israeli and Syrian areas of the Golan Heights. And Israel, of course, is saying you have to get out of there, and they're already talking about possible military action. But according to surveillance, there's infrastructure work going on at the site. In other words, they're fixing it up. They intend to be there for a while. Apparently, Israel fired a Patriot missile at a drone, which they claim was spying on them from Syria. The Patriot missile missed, and the Syrian drone turned around and returned unscathed. So, now, Ben Rhodes did an interview on TV and was being asked about who is supporting the jihadists in Syria, and he was asked point blank, is any of this coming from the United States? And he hemmed and hawed and rambled about, second-guessing Syria policy. But at the end, he basically admitted that, yes, the Obama administration armed jihadists in Syria. This is from Ben Rhodes. Now, we've already known that. There was paperwork that surfaced on that. That consulate in Benghazi was the hub of a smuggling operation that was smuggling weapons from Libya following the overthrow of Gaddafi and sending them to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. At the same time, we were all being told that ISIS and Al-Qaeda were the enemy, which I think makes everybody involved in that smuggling ring, like former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, technically guilty of treason, giving aid and comfort to an enemy in time of war, because there's a war on terror. And ISIS and Al-Qaeda are supposedly the enemy. Britain has issued a travel warning to their nationals regarding the United Arab Emirates out of concern that as the battle in Yemen around Hodeidah heats up, that Yemen might start firing missiles at Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And the battle in Hodeidah is still going on. It's still very, very intense. And the Houthis are, at the moment, seem to be hanging on. Apparently, the Saudis got chased out of that one airport they took control of. And I can understand why the Saudis, while they have a military advantage, they don't have a morale advantage. Those Saudis are there invading somebody else's country. They're there mostly for the paycheck, whereas the Houthis are fighting for their country. They're fighting for things they can see with their eyes right there. And that always tends to make very dedicated troops. Plus, after 3 years now, these are battle-hardened troops. Meanwhile, Riyadh apparently is paying huge bribes to foreign firms to shut down all Yemeni media. This is coming out of Ansarallah. And Mohammed Abdul Salam, the movement spokesman, made the remarks in a statement carried by Yemen's Arabic language Al Masira satellite television network on Sunday, saying in only one instance, Riyadh had given as much as $30 million to a foreign satellite company to block a Yemeni news channel for just 30 days. So the Saudis are understanding the optics on what they're doing in Yemen are not good. They're not seen as heroes. The people of Yemen just want to run their own country. That's what democracy is supposed to be about, right? That's all they want. I mean, they call the Houthis the rebels, but they're not rebels. They're the government of Yemen. They're the people's government that kicked out the internationally approved puppet rulers that were installed by the United States a few years ago. And I reject this idea of an internationally approved government for any country. The government of any country is up to the people of that country. It does not require the approval of the international community, meaning the United States. Down in Gaza, the Ministry of Health is reporting that a total of 131 Palestinians have been killed and over 14,000 wounded during the Great March of Return. And again, Israel has really stepped in at this time. People cannot pretend this didn't exist. And we're even starting to see members of the U.S. Congress come on out and be critical of what Israel is doing. And that's unheard of with AIPAC's iron grip on our government. To see anybody in Congress come on out and say, I think Israel crossed the line here. They shouldn't be using these butterfly bullets. They shouldn't be using snipers from fortified positions against unarmed demonstrators. Now, according to Middle East Monitor, the Israeli army is working on a plan to what they call dissect and occupy parts of the Gaza Strip. They want to break it up, the way they've broken up the West Bank. And correspondent Rory Ben Yishai, citing unnamed Israeli military officials, said that the army is already considering alternatives to the Hamas government should the latter not cooperate in efforts to establish an economic security arrangement agreeable to the Israelis. Well, it doesn't matter what Hamas comes up with. Israel never agrees, is the reality. And these people are being starved. They're being imprisoned. But they're going to put the blame on Hamas. We wanted to make a deal with them. They wouldn't make a deal. So now we're going to go on in. And I think it was only about 4 weeks ago, one of the members of the Knesset was saying, let's just get it over with. Let's just send in the army and take back Gaza. And yes, the world will criticize us, but it'll pass. Which it isn't really. If you look at the reaction to the Bloody Monday massacre, it's not fading away. People are still talking about it. They're still writing about it. I do think it's a turning point. And supporting that is this article that came out of Middle East Monitor showing that support for the Palestinians is gathering speed here in the United States. People are coming on out and saying, yes, it's gone on too far, too much has happened, too much has been done. And we're not going to look the other way anymore. Now, that might get them in a little bit of trouble because according to this other article that we got from The Intercept, apparently the FBI, which has nothing better to do, now that it's no longer spying on Trump, I think, is starting to question pro-Palestinian activists just about the fact that they support Palestine. Now, it's not a crime to support Palestine. In fact, it's an expression of your First Amendment right to freedom of speech. But apparently these pro-Israel groups are gathering lists of people who post pro-Palestinian articles on Facebook or Twitter, and they're giving them to the FBI, and the FBI is starting to talk to these activists. It's an intimidation campaign because these activists have not committed any crimes. None at all. Meanwhile, down in South Africa, things are going from bad to worse. Since Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress took over South Africa, more than 70,000 white people have been murdered, and untold numbers have been robbed, raped, and tortured. And it's something the corporate media chooses not to cover. In fact, they're fawning over the fact that South Africa is under black rule. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. But right now in South Africa, the murder rate for the white farmers is 20 times the international average. It's completely out of control. And somebody sent me some photos of the victims. And they're not just being killed, they're literally being chopped up. They're being killed with machetes and axes. Now, getting back to the issue of election fraud, this year's elections in Mexico are basically the bloodiest in their history. Lots of candidates have just been assassinated leading up to the elections here, and an entire police force of 28 officers has been arrested for the murder of a mayoral candidate in western Mexico, in the town of Ocampo. The entire police force were cuffed, disarmed, and interrogated by internal affairs officials. So, now, getting to our domestic political scene, do you remember back when Hillary's email server was first making the news, and the State Department came on out and said they didn't know until it was too late that Hillary Clinton was using a personal email server? Well, it's turned out she never had a State Department email address at all. The State Department never set one up for her. This is from the department's former top watchdog. So they had to know she was using a private server because she didn't have an account inside the protected secure system at the State Department. This was all planned in advance to allow Hillary Clinton to skirt the rules governing federal records management. That's exactly what it was. And again, if she was breaking the rules to have private email, then she was doing something she didn't want a record kept of. And this gets back to my suspicion that Hillary was replaying the 1996 Chinagate scandal. She was selling U.S. secrets to foreign interests using her private email server with weaker security than Ashley Madison to deliver the product, and her so-called charitable foundation to collect and launder the payments. And there's something about that email server where that's the most protected point in all these cover-ups that we're seeing and all the stonewalling that we're getting from the Department of Justice and the FBI. That email server and what Hillary was doing with it seems to be where all the cover-ups overlap. It's the most protected point. And that's why we have to keep attention focused on it. Now, Representative Nunes is out there saying that U.S. assets were likely used to spy on the Trump campaign. And he says the more that we see stonewalling by the Department of Justice and the FBI, there's something being hidden. And it's highly likely that both the Department of Justice and the FBI sent informants to spy on the Trump campaign prior to the initiation of the fake Russian collusion investigation in an attempt to later frame the Trump administration if a victory were to occur, using a series of planned setups, none of which worked. And here's where it gets interesting. This plan appears to have started when operatives used a proxy, in quotes, Russian server to ping an email server inside the Trump Tower, which is what triggered this whole thing. So it wasn't even a real contact with Russia. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting worse.
And aloha America, welcome back to the show here. And over at Judicial Watch, President Tom Fitton has issued a statement regarding the Department of Justice Inspector General's report. And basically saying that Jeff Sessions was justified in firing Andrew McCabe And we know that Trump was justified in firing Comey. And it all comes down to the repeated lying that we were seeing coming from these people. Now, when regular people lie to the FBI, they get hit with a felony charge. And Judicial Watch basically uncovered documents months ago that should have triggered McCabe's removal. And Americans should expect a full investigation of the numerous anti-Trump and other outrageous FBI abuses under Obama and McCabe's mentor, James Comey. Well, more than expect, we should demand. We have had 18 months of the entire investigative justice machinery of the U.S. government trying to find something on Donald Trump while ignoring the email server, which has never been properly investigated. We know that now. Okay. It's the Uranium One. All these things are out there. The pay for play should be reopened. The IG report makes it clear that was never properly investigated. In fact, there wasn't anything about what Hillary Clinton was doing as Secretary of State or during the 2016 campaign that has had a proper investigation. That is the takeaway from the IG report. Now, Devin Nunes yesterday called on the Justice Department and the FBI to provide the House Intelligence Committee with outstanding information that they've been stonewalling about by today, end of day today. They've got to turn it over. And Nunes, who chairs the House Intelligence Panel, blasted the Department of Justice and the FBI in a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on Sunday for unilaterally restricting access to some subpoenaed documents to the Gang of Eight, which is the term used to describe a bipartisan group of congressional leaders often briefed on intelligence matters. And one of the things that Nunes is demanding is to reveal when the spying on Trump actually began. They don't have a date. Now, according to former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, hope I pronounced that correctly, he's saying they don't really have a start date because there was no actual formal official start of an investigation. They started with zero evidence at all. They were spying on Trump illegally. They tried to gin up that Russia collusion as the reason for it all. They went to court, the FISA court, with that bogus Christopher Steele dossier. This thing was just crooked from top to bottom. This is really bigger than Watergate. Now, one of the FBI agents who was outed recently was Sally Moyer, and she texted blank Trump. And it turns out she's a registered Democrat, which we could assume. But apparently her job on the Clinton probe, she was on what was called the filter team. And this team determined whether information obtained by the FBI is considered privileged or if it can be used in the investigation. So she was literally in a position to be able to divert damning information. But there's no bias at the FBI here, right? Nothing to see. There has never been a proper investigation. It was political and rigged right from day one. And the American people need to demand that something be done about this, that there be proper investigations. Turn it over to Judicial Watch. You know, Trump should hand them some additional enforcement powers if need be. It's for sure the current FBI and Department of Justice will not go along with the new investigation, or they'll just cover it up all over again. Give them a chance to polish the lies and propaganda. But that's the reality. With all this effort focused on Trump for the last year and a half, and before that apparently, they're ignoring Very obvious evidence of crimes that were taking place. Pay to play. The email server. The Clinton Foundation itself. Uranium One. All of that needs to be looked at. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break, and when we come on back, more about what's going on with Robert Mueller and how he may actually be in a little bit of a corner. Good place for him. We'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you got enough proof, distract yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, over at Robert Mueller's special counsel office, he's in a little bit of a jam because this whole Russia collusion thing just fell apart, and that was supposed to be his job. And starting a few months ago, when it was obvious they weren't finding anything that could be exploited by the Democrats to get Trump, he started casting far afield. And that's not what special counsels are supposed to do. Special counsels are normally appointed to investigate a single crime. But supposedly Rod Rosenstein gave him a memo that said, well, you can just go wherever you want, just find something. And apparently that memo is one of the documents that is still being withheld. So Mueller was going after some of Trump's associates for crimes completely unconnected with the campaign, procedural stuff that shouldn't require a special counsel. And then in order to make a splash and just in a desperate effort to make it look like they started to find something about Trump-Russia collusion, Mueller indicted these Russian nationals and basically said they were running a troll farm that posted pro-Trump messages. That's it. That's the collusion right there, by golly. And then he sat back to let the media feed on that, secure in his belief that the Russians weren't going to show up and have their day in court. And that's where he miscalculated, because now the Russians' lawyers are there saying, yes, we're ready to go to trial. And at first, Mueller tried to block discovery, which you never do that. That didn't work. And apparently now he is hiring more prosecutors. He's enlarging his staff, trying to find something on these Russian nationals. But I think the perception of most people is that he never found anything. And he's desperately just out there scratching away, trying to find anything that justifies all the months and all the millions of dollars that have been spent on this. Now, here's a little tidbit that surfaced about the Inspector General's report. Apparently, there was a second appendix that was in the book. And according to this article that came on out of the Gateway Pundit, that entire appendix was redacted from the report under pressure from supposedly Department of Justice, and it was labeled law enforcement sensitive. And it's now being reported that the appendix contains damaging information on the Obama administration's former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. And it was just totally redacted and left out of the report. And when the IG report came on out, I said, it's a limited hangout. They're going to admit to some things to make it look like they're doing a proper investigation, but the real deep, dark secrets are going to be hidden. That's what a limited hangout is. Here, we did these small things bad. We're sorry, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. You, the American people, can now return to your lives satisfied that justice has been served and we have properly investigated. All right, turning to the economic news, it was a rough day on the stock markets. At one point, the Dow was down over 400, and I think it ended 300 down. Let me take a quick little look here and see where it went. 328 at the close. So it was a bad day, and Friday looks to have been an anomaly. Of course, we know that the plunge protection team always tries to give the money junkies a happy ending for Friday so that they can have fun over the weekend. But it's all being blamed on Trump's trade wars. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. We know that there are other strains on our equities markets right now, but China's going to get the blame for it, or Trump's going to get the blame for it. And U.S. futures have taken a slump, meaning they're not expecting the stock market to start coming up anytime soon. In fact, if we have another week like the one that we just had, we might actually see some investors start to panic and pull out of the market. China, of course, is now starting to forcibly devalue their yuan as a way of getting back at the United States. It's being described as weaponizing the yuan. But there's nothing new about that. The U.S. has been weaponizing our currency against other countries for decades here. Russia Today is reporting that this currency war could possibly end the dominance of the U.S. dollar. And obviously, as the currency wars drive the value of currencies down, at some point, precious metals are going to break free. They're still being manipulated. There's absolutely no question about that. It doesn't make sense that when the value of the currency and the value of the stock market are going down, that precious metals are not going up. But as long as they've gone to the trouble of driving the prices down, now is a good time to buy in. And I think everybody ought to have at least a little supply of silver and gold. And if you want an easy way to get into it, you can go online and look for what is called junk silver coins. And these are the pre-1964 U.S. coins that actually have silver in them, but they have no numismatic value whatsoever. Never buy the numismatic value. That changes with a fashion. What's collectible today? Old news down the road. You buy for the melt value. You buy as close to the melt value as you can. And the advantage is you've got silver, and as well as nickel and pure copper. And in the event of a major economic upheaval, it's a recognized unit of currency. Everybody knows what a quarter is. So that will be the basis for trade when the U.S. dollar is considered unusable. Now, India is working on devising a way to bypass U.S. sanctions in order to pay for Iran oil. And they're looking at two different approaches. One is going to be a barter-type arrangement, which at one point the U.S. actually approved, where Iran would send India oil and India would send back some other kind of product in kind, agricultural produce, who knows what. So there was no currency involved in the transaction. And that way there's no currency to be interrupted or sanctioned or tariffed. The other option is to route the payment through a third country like Turkey. But everybody's sick and tired of all these U.S. sanctions. It's isolating us from the rest of the world here. And the reality is our economy is in serious trouble. We are in the greatest debt bubble in history, and the debt keeps getting bigger, and there's absolutely no way to pay it off because that's the way private central banks are designed. You can never get out of debt to the banks, and that debt is what the bankers use to control you, your nation, your government. Down in Argentina, their peso is collapsing. That may signal greater instability in the global economy here. All right, so let's talk about the immigration issue. This is still being fanned way, way up. It's being pounded on by the Democrats. And again, they're using it, at least in part, to keep Americans from looking at that IG report and from looking at Uranium One and the email server and the pay for play. You know, forget about all the skullduggery in Washington, D.C. Look down on that southern border, those poor little children there. Now, Time magazine found itself in hot water for the cover that had Donald Trump looking down at this crying girl, which was presented as a girl who'd been separated from her mother. And then it turned out, no, it hadn't happened. The girl was crying while immigration people were searching her mother, but she was never separated. And Time magazine issued a correction. Then today they came back on out and said, well, we were justified in using the image because she's become the face of the separated children, even though she wasn't separated. So Time magazine is trying to polish its image a little bit. The big issue right now is that Trump is saying that illegal immigrants should be deported with no judges or court cases. And of course, everybody's screaming, due process, due process, due process. Well, I agree with Trump on this one. If they're in this country illegally, what is a judge or a court case going to change about that? The judge is not going to say, yes, you can stay. To do that, you have to apply for asylum. That's a completely different area. And of course, the Democrats are screaming about this. The lawyers who would have made money in these court cases are screaming about it. And they're out there saying that this violates the U.S. Constitution's due process provision. And they're saying it applies to non-citizens. Really? Well, let's take a look at that, because Trump is describing these illegal immigrants as invaders. We're seeing the same thing in Europe with the refugees there. It's not immigration, it's an invasion, because there's no control over it. Well, if they're invaders, why are they protected by the United States Constitution? It's just a way to try and keep the illegal immigrants in the country as long as possible. Now, the problem with this whole judge and court issue, it's called catch and release. They'll catch the illegal immigrants at the border, and they'll give them a court date. But in most cases, the illegals never show up for the court case, because they know what the judge is going to say: deportation. So they just go on into the community to find some place where they can kind of just sit there. Trump is right on this one. If you catch them at the border and they don't have the paperwork to be in this country, you turn them around. It's the same thing you'd get at passport control. If you're coming into this country and you don't have a valid passport, they're not going to let you through that customs gate. They're going to turn you right around and put you on a plane back home. They don't let you into the country and say, well, we're going to have a court case somewhere down the road, and if you manage to find your passport, you can show up with it then. It doesn't work that way. The exact same rules for crossing our borders at the airports and the ship lines should be the same rules we have at that border fence. Now, Maxine Waters was out there encouraging Democrats to form a mob and physically push back against White House employees. We're seeing a lot of violence by liberals against Department of Homeland Security people, against White House staff. And so she's out there just screaming at people, you know, to get physical against the White House employees. Now, that is called incitement. And Maxine Waters could go to prison for 5 years for inciting a riot. She needs to be very, very careful. Now, over on The View, co-host Meghan McCain understandably criticized Maxine Waters for urging attacks, physical confrontations with Trump officials. And Meghan said it's absolutely insane and extremely dangerous. My father works in law, works in the administration. Does this mean when we go out to dinner we should be ambushed? And it is happening. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi was chased out of a movie theater. She was there to watch Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is a documentary about TV host Mr. Rogers. And apparently several members of Organized Florida claimed they staged an impromptu protest when they just happened to see her at the theater. Now, this is like the third time a Republican woman or member of the administration has been confronted by protesters in recent days. And by the way, they always target women because they don't want to get punched by a guy. Story coming out of the Washington Times: is violence next? Democrats encourage aggressive public confrontations against Trump aides. And apparently down in Virginia, there was a restaurant owner who refused to serve White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And they said, we're asking you to leave. And Sarah went on Twitter and said, her actions say far more about her than about me, which is true. Here's my question. Where are all the leftists who screamed that a Christian baker had to make a cake for a gay couple? Nowhere to be seen. See, it's okay to refuse to do business with Republicans. That's within their right. It's their business, their place of business. But after all the haranguing we have been getting about how us law-abiding gun owners are the dangerous ones in society. The liberals are just, out there with this outrageous behavior, hounding the Secretary of Homeland Security out of the restaurant, then demonstrating on her lawn with chants and blurring audio of crying children, denying the White House press secretary and her family dinner at another restaurant. We just talked about that one. Trying to get Hall of Fame basketball player Kevin McHale fired from his job as an NBA announcer because he attended a speech by the President of the United States. Liberals falsely accused an ICE agent who's a double amputee as a result of an IED explosion in Afghanistan of being a neo-Nazi. They misinterpreted a tattoo on his arm. It was actually his unit's insignia. And this is only a partial list. The liberals are the ones who are becoming dangerous out there. Representative Steve King posted a warning that the U.S. is heading toward a second civil war. And he's basically comparing the present-day actions of the anti-Trump resistance to the run-up to the Civil War. Going to have another Harper's Ferry. And after that comes Fort Sumter. And after that comes a great deal of unhappiness. I don't know about that. I mean, after all, us dangerous conservatives, we have all the guns. All right, we're going to take another break for a commercials here, and we'll be right back with more about immigration.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MigRelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MigRelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MigRelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and a new app, Koshertified, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out the kosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Koshertified app can make a huge difference for your future.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the immigration issue. And you probably recall recently when I said this idea of separating children from adults makes perfect sense. If you get arrested for a crime, whether it's crossing the border illegally or robbing the local convenience store, you're going to go to jail. And they will not let you take your children with you. And apparently a lot of people came to the same conclusion here. That, yeah, it makes absolute sense. And so out in California, Dianne Feinstein is proposing a bill to say that adults who commit a crime near the border get off scot-free. And legal experts are looking at it and saying it's so loosely written that it literally is saying that any adult who commits any crime near the border that has children with them, essentially it becomes a non-crime. And this is according to attorney Gabriel Maller from the Federal. And he's saying that Feinstein's bill would provide that an agent or an officer of a designated agency shall be prohibited from removing a child from his or her parent or legal guardian at or near the port of entry or within 100 miles of the border of the United States, suggesting that any crimes committed in those areas by people with children, they're going to get off. More looniness from the left. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Dianne Mike, Dianne not so Feinstein. That's the term, you know.
Yep.
You know, these people, Mike, just all of Washington, D.C., and the liberals and even like the right-wing Republicans, whatever you want to call them, they have accelerated the decline of this country. Do you realize that? Like, we're a laughingstock of the world. Everybody's looking at us, how destabilizing we're becoming. Like violence, they're talking about violence against people across the aisle. I mean, lunacy, that's not the word. I mean, this is brown shirt tactics. They're calling for what the Nazis or the communists would do, you know? Like, they've become them, you know? I mean, it's insane. Like, kicking out somebody out of a restaurant. Like, what's that have to do with going in for something to eat? I mean,
or watching a movie or anything else. And it's a campaign of intimidation. And you've got people like Maxine Waters out there inciting this kind of behavior.
Which leads to Black Lives Matter, Antifa. They all follow you around, and they, you know, to get you to submit to what they like.
Yes.
They don't want to know what you like, you know? Like, I mean, this is so, Mike, I mean, we're living in, like, you know, George Orwell was like a prophecy expert, you know? I mean, you're looking at surveillance state. We're at war with Eurasia, basically. You know, it's like, it's just so crazy what's going on. Like, I'm like, well,
all right, well, listen, Dustin, we got to take a quick break for station identification. Stay on the line. I'm going to come right back to you after these few words.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And there are a lot of parallels between what's going on in our society and the book 1984. Although in the book 1984, you didn't have a political divide in the general population that was threatening to break into violence. And that really is very, very serious. And we started seeing it all the way back when Hillary lost the 2016 election. And all of her supporters were out there, and they were rioting, and they were throwing tantrums all over the place. And it does seem like the liberal mindset is now locked into this very childish, very aggressive, I want what I want, and we're going to just intimidate you until you go along with this kind of a mindset.
Yeah, there's no critical thinking skills with any of these people anymore. You know, like, you can't talk to them. You know, like, you can't talk to anybody in Washington, D.C., obviously, you know, but, like, I mean, it's just, I don't think we got that much longer to wait. You know, hey, Mike, who controls the nuclear football when this country just collapses? That's what I want to know.
Well,
you know?
that's a valid concern here. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of people were saying, who's in charge of those nuclear weapons? Because there were briefly some factions that were fighting for control. But in the event our nation collapses, it's kind of hard to say. I would hope that the people actually in the silos and the bombers at that point would say, well, the civilian authority has collapsed, therefore nobody has the authority to launch a nuclear weapon. But who knows what could happen.
Yeah, Maxine Waters, I mean, they're all crazy. I mean, I don't even know what to think anymore. They're just all crazy. It's in the water. It's just they're brainwashed or whatever. And you can look at Mueller and Comey. It's so corrupt, Mike. Like, I never see anything like, you know, it's like we're down to a banana republic. You know, this is bottom of the barrel crap.
Yeah,
you know,
we really have here. Somebody actually had an article, and it's at whatreallyhappened.com, where they took the classic definition of a psychopath, and then they sort of drew a map of the United States, you know, which areas are more psychotic than others, and to nobody's surprise, the most psychotic part of our entire country is inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, because they live in another world. They don't live in the real world. You know, they do what they want to do and get away with it because that's the way that system is set up there. They just don't look at the way the real people live in the world and here, you know, because, like I said, they love the children, but they don't love them in Syria and Yemen, I guess, right? You know,
Yeah,
so
they only love the ones that will help them win elections by voting illegally.
Yeah, that'll be on Time magazine, for until they got to you notice how when they put something on a magazine or a newspaper and then they got to recant it, but the damage has been done already. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like nobody looks at it after it's been recanted.
Well,
that's why
that's why Time magazine came out with a statement today saying that it was legitimate to use her picture because she's the face of the separated children, even though she herself was not in fact separated, which is just pure corporate media bovine excrement to try and recover their credibility from this goof.
And Mike, real quick, Peter from Los Angeles was talking about that Mackinder Heartland theory.
Yes.
That's a pretty good theory, because I was looking Eurasia. We've always been able with Eurasia. How, like I said, that's fitting, right? Because if you control that belt in the road, right?
Yep.
That's China's the next empire. That's the new century, the Chinese century, and we pushed Russia and China and India and all them, Turkey, closer together.
Yep, we sure did.
It. Game over. All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, you got it. And amazingly enough, Peter in Los Angeles is our next call. So, Peter, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Amazingly enough, I want to chime in on something that I just heard from the previous caller here, from Dustin, and about the violence, Mike, and I want to dovetail the violence along with the election and the investigations. And the violence, do you remember the violence was going on during the election itself, not after the election, where it actually increased. But remember, they were beating up people in Vegas and Phoenix and all over. They were Antifa, Black Lives Matter, were beating people up, and the police were like standing down. They were doing nothing about it.
Yes.
And then of course it got worse after the election, and this recent thing with Maxine Waters is an escalation, because now it was just George Soros, the person who's the biggest donor for the Democratic Party, who was funding all these people and calling the shots, but he was using these crisis actor, rent-a-mob, Antifa people to do this. And now it's escalated to the point where we have elected officials, just as you say, inciting riots.
Yes.
And they're not only going after supporters, now they're going after officials and government officials and people like that as well. So it's an escalation. But to go back further to the investigation, the whole thing with this surveillance state and all that, it's a cover-up. The whole thing with the Mueller investigation and the Russia thing. Listen, it was Obama was surveilling these people. There is no date on when it started, because it started as soon as he came in. As soon as he gave all of our stuff, we know where his mind was, where 3 months after he came in the office, he gave all that information, all the intercepts we have to Israel, unvetted.
Yes.
So, and had cover from the Israeli lobby in doing it. And so he continued. But at any rate, they were surveilling him all along. And when they finally went to get those FISA warrants in the July before the election, and the first one was turned down, and then they came back in September, October, and finally got one approved, falsely, with false evidence, as it turns out, with that dodgy dossier thing. But that was just simply like another insurance policy by Obama and his ilk to cover the fact that, well, what happens in the off chance that we lose? That because not only should he go to jail, I mean, be impeached if he were in office, but he should go to jail even now if it comes out that he was doing that. But that gave them an excuse. Well, we had this ongoing investigation. We suspected it all along. And that's why they've stonewalled it so long, Mike. They're just covering up. And by the way, Michael Hastings got murdered for what he was going to divulge about intercepts and surveillance, remember?
Yes.
Then, of course, Seth Rich got murdered. All these people are murdered. They're killing people right and left to cover that up. The Hillary server, the Clinton Foundation. But you know what? It comes back to Clinton's. And by the way, who appointed her? Obama. Who appointed Brennan? Obama. Who appointed Comey? Guildenstern and Rosenstein, and Horowitz. All these people are Obama people.
Yes.
Clapper. They all report to the same guy. They're all appointed by the same guy, and they're all in it. All their agencies have been suborned to do this unconstitutional stuff, and they're in to cover it up too.
You know, Obama's. My understanding is Obama still has an office located in Washington, D.C., and they have meetings
We're going
there.
to hang anybody. It should be Obama. We should hang Obama.
Stop short of doing that. Remember, he's
the worst ex-president.
I would say yes, he's a terrible president, but we don't advocate violence here against anybody, no matter how tempting it may be. Of course,
after trial, after a fair trial.
Yes, we'll give him a fair trial, followed by a first-class hanging. It's one of my favorite lines out of Silverado.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is a huge mess, and they're covering up because this is a scandal that is bigger than Watergate. It involves a lot more of the intelligence community, a lot more people, and yeah, they're trying to keep it covered up. But it's bit by bit, it's coming on out, and we just need to keep sharing with people who do not listen to Republic Broadcasting, or who are off at the beach today instead of listening to Republic Broadcasting, and to people who are not reading websites like whatreallyhappened.com. We need to share this information and say, this is a problem. The takeaway from the Inspector General report is there was never a proper investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. There was never a proper investigation into the pay-for-play schemes. And it's just this huge, massive corruption that is killing our nation.
Again, they've thrown Manafort into jail for, based on nothing really.
Yes.
But they didn't even interview Hillary. Didn't get interviewed. It never was put under oath. All her direct reports got immunity. They were allowed to destroy evidence at will. All her supporters in all the key positions. I mean, but look what they did to Manafort.
Yep.
The whole thing needs to go. There's a lot of people that need to go to jail here, but it will never happen.
Well, what needs to happen, and I said this before, Trump's biggest single mistake on coming into the White House was he wanted to be magnanimous in victory, and he kept a bunch of these Clinton holdovers. And what he should have done was basically accepted all of their resignations and started putting in very strong conservative people who would actually do the job. And I don't know what is constraining Trump from doing that. He has the authority to fire these people at any time for any reason. They all serve at the pleasure of the president. He doesn't need to justify when he fires somebody. The IG report basically said he was fully justified in firing Comey. And it is his authority as the president. And really, he needs to put on those presidential brass knuckles and start going to work and get these Obama holdovers out, because they are clearly working against him.
Well, Mike, the deep state, of course, is in lockstep against Trump.
Yes.
and cover up here. And every single time that we have something like this IG report, in itself completely cleansed and redacted, completely sanitized, so to cover up for their side. But even when that's released, we get conditized, as your term goes, with the children from the border, and the deep state, and add all the intelligence agencies into that, who are all in this, can keep releasing stuff like that, keep sanitizing things just like that, and it will go on ad infinitum. Nothing can get done.
Well, all I can suggest is that we start thinking seriously about what we're going to do after it all falls apart, because no nation can survive a government that's this corrupt. No nation can survive an economy that is this much in debt. And no nation can survive making war all over the globe and not doing very well at it. And like Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, we're going to have to try and set up a new government with important safeguards in it. Strict limits on how much money can be donated by the ultra-wealthy. term limits, financial trusts for all members of Congress, not just the president. And there's a long list of things that we can do, starting with the Constitution and the first 13 amendments, and just say, this is where we're going to go with this, and go back to being a republic with a strong economy, strong manufacturing, strong borders, rather than this liberalized, we're just going to take everything and socialize it and give it away to people who vote for us. Because that's where we are right now, the bread and circuses phase.
Mike, can I just raise one thing and then I got to head out here?
Sure.
I came in a little late. Did you cover that there's a story about how an Israeli minister was saying that he regarded Israelis, citizens, marrying American Jews was a threat to Israel? Did you cover that yet?
I didn't cover it. It's on the website. It's not in my talking points. I didn't think it was important enough to do that, but it is on what really happened.
And that was from a left-wing Israeli government official.
Yes.
That's their liberal wing.
Yep.
American Jews he looks at as a threat.
Yes. Well, it's probably because American Jews are starting to turn against Israel. I mean, they're not open and vocal about it. Some are. There have been some protests out there. But polls are showing, especially since the Bloody Monday massacre, American Jews are just as appalled by what Israel is doing. And it makes Jews the world round look bad. And a lot of Jews are starting to speak out because they don't want to be seen as complicit in what are very obviously crimes against humanity.
Well, they deserve to look bad. They have been complicit in their silence for 70 years. It's not like this is new, but yeah, I hear you. They certainly don't want to be seen as being politically incorrect or uncool. So some of them are starting to distance themselves. But how sick is that? But nevertheless, I'm glad it's happening at any level.
Yes. All right. Well, listen, Peter, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go here and switch over to Robert in California. Aloha, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, how you doing, Mike? First-time caller. I really enjoy your show. Mike, I want to talk about the economy and the misinformation that's being spread about it being a robust economy that's on the climb. It really bugs me. What I'm focusing on is the labor force utilization rate. I think it's about 62.5%, 63%.
Yep.
Am I about in the ballpark?
That's about where it is, yes.
Yeah. So that means that 37% of the workforce is not being utilized. So where are they?
That's almost 100 million Americans, legal American citizens. And the government does a little bookkeeping trick. If you've been out of work over a certain period of time, so many months, you're moved into a new category. I don't know what they call it, chronically unemployable, and they're not included in the calculation of the unemployment number.
I see. Very convenient.
Yep.
One of the other observations that I have is that with so many people out of the workforce, so many able-bodied people, something like 37%, and you're losing, and every day that they're out of work or underemployed, you're losing the productivity. Yes. How do you expect to get to 4.5% GDP? How can you do that? Is that also a myth?
Probably they're manipulating the numbers on that one as well. That's all they can do. They can't actually fix this economy. All they can do, and this is just like the former Soviet Union, when they got into economic trouble, they just make up numbers and feed them to the people through Pravda and Izvestia.
I like that. Mike, thank you very much for your input. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I will call again.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a much delayed shout out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network, have rejoined the network. Getting on back to immigration, an article that came on out of Natural News is basically looking at the fact that even though Donald Trump has signed this executive order to keep the children with the parents, those children who cross with an adult, it's not enough. The liberals are still out there screaming what they really want are open borders. What they oppose is Donald Trump's zero-tolerance policy. Trump is trying to shut down this whole catch and release, which doesn't really work because once they're released into the country, they rarely show up for their court dates. Newt Gingrich is out there saying what the Democrats are standing for is millions of people coming in illegally through those open borders, because the Democrats are going to hand them all kinds of free things paid for by you, and all these illegal immigrants will vote in the elections, even though that is illegal. And that's why I keep saying Trump needs to really work on a national voter ID law, and he needs to do it right now. It's not racist to require an ID that says you're allowed to vote in this country. So we're going to take another break here for commercials, and we will be right back.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And politicians, of course, are hopping on this bandwagon over the immigration situation down at the border. And as the caller said, we are being conditized. They don't want us looking at that IG report. So this is the big story. This is the big story. And because it's getting so much media and press, everybody wants to hop on and get their face on TV. And we have these shameless Democrats who are down there pretending to be concerned about those poor immigrant children. And you've got Mayor de Blasio is down there posing for the cameras in Texas when 2 out of 5 children in New York City continue to live in poverty. Mayor Eric Garcetti was down there posing for the cameras in Texas, and 8.9% of children in Los Angeles live in deep poverty. Where's your concern for them? It's all politics. They are, in fact, being shameless. Now, over in Portland, Oregon, there is an anti-ICE, meaning Immigration's Custom Enforcement protest. It's actually a blockade, and it's grown into a tent city with more than 80 tents. And it's starting to look like the Occupy Portland camps that took hold of 2 downtown parks back in 2011. And once again, a Portland mayor has sanctioned the takeover, but this time the target is a federal agency, and the goal is to directly impede its work. Now, where are the Title VIII prosecutions? That's what I want to know. Because everybody in this country who is transporting or sheltering or hiring or in any way aiding illegal immigrants is committing a crime. And if you want to shut off the illegal immigration problem, what you do is you shut off that financial incentive. You start prosecuting businesses that are hiring illegals. The word will go on out. Illegals will not be able to get work in this country, and they'll go back over the border into Mexico. Now, Antifa members are praising a New York University faculty member, Sam Levine, and he's at NYU, and he created a database of more than 1,500 Immigrations and Customs Enforcement employees, names and addresses, and it got posted and was immediately taken down for violating doxing policies. But yeah, it's like they're getting ready to do the brown shirt number on us. Apparently, the Department of Homeland Security has warned their employees to just be very careful about their personal safety. Now, here's the good news. Since the Democrats cranked up this whole thing about the separated children and tried to turn it into this big get Trump issue, their poll numbers for the coming November elections have dropped because the optics on this are so bad. Now, nearly half of swing district voters want illegal alien families deported together to their native country. Just round them up, put them on a plane or a ship, and send them. If they want to be citizens of the United States, there is a legal process they can go through. And for those immigrants who have come to this country through the legal process, welcome. I hope we live up to your expectations. But the polls are definitely swinging against the Democrats and the open border people on this one here. Democrats are also losing the millennial vote. Young Americans, they're tending away from religion, and they're open. But they're not excited about gun control. And I think they're tired of being preached at. You should do this. You should do that. You should surrender your guns. You should welcome the refugees and the illegal immigrants. And it's a big turnoff. I remember when I was young, I didn't like being told what to do. And yet that has become the stance of the Democratic Party, and it's costing them. CBS News did a poll, and they found out that basically 60%, last March, the CBS poll showed 60% opposed a border wall. Now 51% are in favor of it. 32% say the wall's a good idea and probably be completed, while another 19% say the wall's a good idea that should be tried even if it can't be completed. But a total of 63% either want the migrant families deported or detained. Those are the numbers coming on in. The open borders is turning into a losing issue for the Democrats, for the liberals here. Now, the U.S. Navy is planning new camps to support the immigration crackdown. And as usual, the liberals are howling because they rely on that catch and release to complete getting the illegals into the country where they can be registered to vote. And Trump is now taking the position they're going to be detained and basically starting to use military bases. I think Trump wants to shut down those for-profit detention centers, which are costing so much money. Anyway, we're going to take another break for commercials. We have another caller waiting on the line, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And And Aloha America, welcome back to our show. We're going to take some phone calls now, and we're going to start with Laura in Michigan. Aloha, Laura. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Well, I told you yesterday that True News said that they were charging the private entities were charging the government $500 a day per child. So when I turned on Russia Today, they were also wondering who was this private entity. So they were given like some initials. So they tried tracking it down, and they said the only thing that they got was it was a shell company that was registered in Delaware.
Yeah, so whoever's actually behind these for-profit detention centers doesn't want to be identified.
Exactly. And isn't that wrong? I mean, if our government's paying the bills for this, we should we know who we're paying it to.
I agree with you because, I mean, the first thing that occurs to me is that whoever owns these detention centers is, one of the key players in trying to keep the borders open and trying to keep the money flowing.
Exactly. Like George Soros or something.
Yeah, or again, Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, any of those people. How do you think you get to be a millionaire on a congressman's salary? It's because you make investments and then you try and steer the country in a direction that favors your investments. And technically, it would be considered insider trading, but Congress gets away with it.
Well, I hope RT keeps trying, because we know our mainstream news is not going to try to look that up. They never even asked any questions about this at all.
No, they don't.
Except to use the emotional.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I hope they keep it.
Yeah, the job
I
of the
never
court.
heard that term, shell company. It's just a shell.
Yes.
I didn't really.
I'm sorry. Would you repeat that again? I may have misunderstood you.
Well, you said that they traced it to a shell company. I don't know if that's just a fake company. Is that they're saying?
No. Well, it's the legal framework for a company that's in Delaware, which doesn't have strong corporate disclosure rules, but behind that is going to be another company that is actually making the money off of all of this.
Okay, I just thought I'd finish up the story with you. Hopefully we can find out more as the time goes by.
It would be interesting to know. It would be interesting to know. Anyway, Laura, thank you very much for the information and the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Kathleen in Paris. Aloha, Kathleen. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. Thank you for taking my call. I heard a very surprising video from Ryan Dawson, I think it was today, about his efforts to immigrate his wife to the States. And I don't know if you got to see that little video that I think I sent it to you. Do you know about his story?
Yeah, I do know about his story. And, of course, Ryan is trying to do it the legal and proper way. And it is amazing that while literally millions of illegal immigrants are being poured into the country by the Democrats, that there is a lot of resistance to allowing legal immigrants. They make them jump through hoops.
Yeah, and they do. That's what he said. He said that he's spent thousands of dollars, and other people have spent thousands and thousands, even more than him. And he's an American citizen. He's married to a Japanese woman, and he moved her there. They moved there and, started the process. Started the process before they moved there, but after a year and a half and all this money, they gave up and went back to Japan.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And
I'm not surprised.
And he thinks that. That's part of the problem, is that it's so difficult that people just throw up their hands and do it illegally. And when he went to Japan and did the reverse situation to have residency in Japan, it was just a matter of months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when I was working,
have to make it easier.
When I was working on Final Fantasy, I made friends with two people who were from Europe, and they were trying to become U.S. citizens. And it was something like 5 years on. And these were productive, gifted people. They were a benefit to our economy, and certainly they were a benefit to the motion picture industry. But it was still 5 years, and still stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block.
Anyway, that was just the 2 cents from Ryan Dawson.
Well, no, I can
would
understand
throw
how
in there.
frustrating that can be. And again, like everything else in this country, it's been turned into a racket. They want you to spend money on lawyers and immigration consultants and guides and everything. Again, it's just another racket.
And I felt I didn't understand that he had that problem. Well, and I listened to his. I'm subscribed to his channel, and so I hear a good number of his broadcasts. And people often criticize him for living abroad and being a political activist for the United States, but living abroad. And, it's kind of not his fault.
No, it isn't his fault, and it's a gratuitous argument to try and shut him down. And to be very honest, throughout the years, Claire and I have toyed with the idea of leaving the United States, but unfortunately at our age, it's going to be very hard to find any other country who wants to take us in. So we're kind of here for the long haul. And there was at one point where I was offered citizenship down in Australia to be part of their motion picture industry. And I got really close to accepting, and then there was just some part of me that said, no, I'm an American, and I'm going to go back and fight the good fight, as it were. Anyway, Kathleen, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Lenny in California. Aloha, Lenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Hey, listen, in reference to your conversation with Dustin earlier about who would be in charge of the nukes, as if, who was in charge of the nukes when the Soviet Union fell. I just have a quick question for you. Didn't they find out that recently the people who were supposedly in charge of launching the nukes were all on LSD?
I seem to recall a story like that. Not the people at the very top, not National Command Authority, but apparently there's a huge drug problem among these missile crews, and apparently, staying down in those silos day after day for their very long shifts. After a while, it gets to them, and it is a problem. But the thing is, without authority from the nuclear football, those crews in the missile silos can't launch a missile. They could accidentally knock one over or something dumb like that, but they're not going to set off a mushroom cloud.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the story on Drudge Report about the new king Abdullah, the 23-year-old son of the Hashemite dwarf over there, King Abdullah of Jordan. Now he's sending a lot of troops to the border with Syria because he doesn't want the blowback of the ISIS fighters who are trying to get the hell out of Syria now because they're getting the crap kicked out of them by Assad and Russia. And now, and I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago that he almost went through a coup in Jordan.
Yes.
So apparently he's trying to reach out to Assad now and trying to make amends, but now somebody else is talking about his son taking over power in the new so-called kingdom of Jordan. Now, I just want to put a question to you. Isn't it funny how some people are allowed to have kingdoms and other people aren't even allowed to have borders?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting little dichotomy. And this idea of no borders is brand new. I mean, for as long as there's been organized civilization, there have been borders. And if you don't have borders, you don't really have a nation, is what it comes down to.
Exactly. Now, one more thing I want to talk about. I don't know if you saw the Information Clearinghouse article where Ralph Nader took on both Laura Bush and Michelle Obama when they came out and said, "Oh, the children," and you should keep the families together, to keep the children together, because nothing's more important than the children. And Ralph Nader said to Laura Bush, "Where was your concern for the children when your husband went in and bombed and killed so many Iraqi children?"
Yes.
And then he fired off at Michelle Obama about what Barack Obama went in and did to Muammar Gaddafi and killed all the Libyan children over there. Not to mention that the blacks who were fighting for Gaddafi, who lived in the country, when the Arabs went in and took it over, the Arab ISIS went in and took it over, they put the black people in cages and fed them bamboo shoots. But no one wants to talk about that.
No, the politicians are only interested in showing concern for children when it's politically useful. And obviously dead children in Iraq and Syria and Yemen and Libya are not really useful during election season. And they're trying to fan up this immigration issue at the border to push the open borders issue. But like I said, the poll numbers say it's backfiring. And Americans' opinion is definitely shifting back toward Trump's idea of a border wall and strict enforcement. And remember, Eisenhower was able to absolutely stop the illegals coming across the border from Mexico. They called it Operation Wetback, which would be considered politically incorrect these days, but that's what it was called, Operation Wetback, with only 1/10 the resources of the current ICE. And of course, I still think they ought to put crocodiles in the Rio Grande, but that's just me.
Yeah, and in terms of Maxine Waters, let me say this. She only cares about no one but herself. All right? And I think that certain people should be ashamed to have her as a representative. All right? But, she sold her soul. She's looking to sell somebody else just to keep herself in favor. Anyway, I thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Tom in Connecticut. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
The lady that called in about who's making money housing illegals.
Yes.
Pretty easy search. There's one company for sure it's on an NPR article. I posted this a while back on Facebook. It's a company called Geo. They get approximately $44 million a year to house 1,000 people.
Boy, that's a lot of money for just 1,000 people.
Well, correct. And I'm sure there are a lot of seniors in this country who would love to have $44,000 a year to live on. So that's one player in this whole situation. It's just so... And then evidently they have plans on board to have 5 new detention facilities built and operated by these private prison corporations. It's just... So obviously they're waiting for waves and waves and waves. I mean, they're just like they're building prisons so that people with minor drug offenses can be dumped into them and let somebody profit from that.
Yeah, well, we have this prison industrial complex, otherwise known as slave labor camps. Again,
every major corporation in the country is utilizing that.
Yeah,
IBM, Apple, all these people are paying these people $1 an hour to do stuff.
You might be surprised to find out that a lot of call centers are being run by these privatized prison factories, and they're getting $1 an hour. And of course, they're taking jobs away.
Opportunities when they get released.
They're taking jobs away from law-abiding American citizens. The owners of the slave labor camps are making huge amounts of money, and it's a very short-sighted situation. I mean, they're making money, and they think that means it's a good thing to do. But there have been judges who have been caught and even disbarred for literally sending minor offenders into these prison factories because the prison factories contract with the local government says that the police and the courts, they've got to have a minimum occupancy, and if they don't, there's a financial penalty.
Mind-boggling. So what do you think when Maxine Waters walks into a restaurant establishment and somebody says, "I don't like your politics, Maxine. Could you leave, please?"
Oh, she'll scream racism or something like that.
This is so sad. Take care, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. Okay, the phone lines are now open and getting on back here. So as I was saying before we got off onto other topics, it looks like Trump may actually be wanting to pull away from these detention center for-profit corporations because he's starting to use military bases to house people. And according to a draft memo obtained by Time magazine, the Navy plans to build temporary and austere tent cities to house 25,000 migrants across 3 abandoned airfields in Alabama. 47,000 people at a facility near San Francisco, and another 47,000 at a training center in Southern California. And of course, the liberals are screaming because they don't want these people detained. They want them out in the general population. Democratic leaders have openly said they're relying on the illegal immigrant vote to win November and 2020, ignoring the fact that illegal immigrants, non-citizens, are not allowed to vote in our elections. So the Democrats are just really angry about that, and they're angry because the new model coming out of the Trump administration is they're not just going to let them out under the catch and release. And again, the problem with the catch and release is the immigrants don't show up for their court dates. Why would they? What's the judge going to say? You're deported. Now remember, all of this was not started by Donald Trump. They tried to imply that, oh, he's cruel, this is his evil policy. But it goes back all the way to the Bush administration, and certainly Obama's administration expanded the program. All those cages, those photograph cages, the children sleeping under aluminum foil, that all happened under Obama. And now he's being sued for it. We'll be right back after these few words.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigRelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLeaf migraine formula. MigraLeaf is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLeaf for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're talking about this lawsuit from the American Immigrant Council, because under Obama is when all those cages and detention centers for children were being built and operated. And the corporate media tried to sell everybody that this was all Donald Trump's idea, and it wasn't. So the American Immigrant Council is now suing Barack Obama on behalf of the illegal alien children who claim they were mistreated in Obama's holding facilities. Now that raises the question about whether a former president can exert sovereign immunity. But at least they're making the effort here. Now, as you know, Trump had a press conference on Friday where he hosted 14 members of what are called the Angel Families. And the Angel Families are the families of victims killed by illegal immigrants. And he had these people around him, and some of them held up photos of the loved ones whose murderers turned out to be illegal immigrants. And at this point, CNN and MSNBC cut away, went to some other story. Only Fox News stayed tuned and showed America what was going on. And again, that's something the liberals and the open border people don't want to talk about. The crime wave that is being caused by the illegal immigrants. And not just murders. We're talking about a lot of drug trafficking is being involved. Oh, now, looking over at Europe, something is funny is going on with these so-called refugees that were taken into Spain. Italy refused them. Italy's refusing all further ships. Spain took them in, and the Red Cross showed up with a bunch of blankets and, you know, some very simple clothing. And somebody noticed after they were gone that these refugees had just thrown the stuff away. And some of these refugees were spotted at a restaurant in Cheste paying for drinks using 100 euro bills. They're going out, they're having parties, they're just having a lot of fun, despite the corporate media reports that they're traumatized from their crossing from Libya. Now, the entire European identitarian movement has been permanently banned from Facebook. This is an anti-mass migration generation identity movement, and they're permanently banned from Facebook. Facebook declared them extremist content. So now, wanting secure borders and wanting a rational, controlled immigration policy is now considered extremism. By the way, have you noticed that for the far left, you know, anybody who is not in lockstep with them is immediately denounced as far right. You're a far right extremist. How dare you not agree with us? All right, there's the music. We're going to do a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 3 after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. I'm going to back up my talking points because this story just came on in and definitely goes under the category of bad optics for the liberals. Now, we were talking about how White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her family were kicked out of this rural Virginia restaurant, the Red Hen restaurant, by the liberal owner. And now we're finding out that wasn't enough. After Sarah left, they went across the street to another restaurant. The owner of the Red Hen restaurant literally followed them across the street to harass them at the other restaurant they went to. All right, let's take a phone call. Don in the Philippines. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I think, in my opinion, the way to stop this thing, it should already happen a long time ago, to stop all these threats. I think it's against the law. As far as I know, it's against the law for somebody like Peter Fonda to recommend kidnapping Trump's son and raping him and all this.
Well, I hope he gets a visit from the Secret Service, to be very honest.
Well, you should not only just get that, they should prosecute him. And if they do visit with the Secret Service, it should be very public. We don't hear anything about this. So these guys, until somebody stops them a little bit, or at least acts like they're doing something wrong, they have no idea the difference between. They're just going to keep on pushing it until somebody stops them. And I think you're right that Maxine Waters is inciting a riot. That's what she's doing. There's no doubt about that. That's against the law.
That is against the law. It's punishable by 5 years. Now, there is a law that says... I'm sorry?
Yeah, the Department of Justice, the FBI, whoever's in charge of this, I guess the FBI, they should be prosecuting these people, or at least starting to prosecute them and making them apologize or something like that.
Well, they should, but they aren't.
They would stop. They quit doing all this stuff.
Yeah, they're just obsessed with Donald Trump, and they're not going to go after a fellow liberal. What do you think that these are? Unbiased organizations? Now, there is a law that makes it a federal crime to threaten the life of the president. I don't know if it extends to his family. My opinion is it probably should.
Yeah, and when Madonna said she wanted to blow up the White House, that's definitely the life of the president there if he lives in the White House. They let him get by with crimes and don't even think about trying to prosecute or anything.
Well,
I got another comment though about the.
There's another issue here, and that is not turning some of these liberal whiners into martyrs to the cause. And that may be one reason why Trump, at least himself, is treading lightly. He doesn't want to be seen as, overreacting to what the liberals are going to claim is a proper exercise of the First Amendment. But again, the polls are showing America is turning away from the Democrats and the liberals, and probably it's because of this childish behavior. And every time they resort to incitement to violence or threaten to kidnap a member of the president's family or any of this other irrational behavior, it's sending a signal to the American voter. The Democrats don't really have any ideas. Because if they had some real ideas that would appeal to the American public, they'd be talking about them calmly and rationally. But this unending display of hysterics and tantrums is signaling the Democrats don't really have anything that's gaining traction with the American people. They're trying to create one. They're always trying to create an issue to run on. Hillary was running on gay rights and abortion and feminism, sexism, victim class stuff. And now, of course, they're trying to fan up this immigration issue, but this one's backfiring on them.
Right. You're right, Mike, that Trump is basically winning by doing nothing and not trying and keeping a low profile. I want to make one other comment about books. As far as a prophetic book that from way back in the old days, another one is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller.
Yes.
He had this guy. There was a mess officer named Milo Minderbinder, and all this guy wanted to do was. The officers the generals liked him because he would go and get eggs, fresh butter and eggs and all this stuff. So they gave him a few airplanes to go out around the world getting this stuff. And he just kept on steamrolling his whole operation. And at the end of the book, he was actually bombing his own air base. So, I mean, that was, it was comedy, but it was black comedy, but actually it kind of was a prophecy of the way the whole, privatization of the military is working nowadays, and it's all about money. Okay, I'll let you go.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And you're right, it is all about the money. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network. Over in Hungary, Viktor Orban was speaking at the unveiling of a monument commemorating victims of the Soviet occupation of Hungary, which was really nasty. They threw the Hungarians into labor camps. They worked them 10, 12, 14 hours of hard labor. The mortality rate sometimes reached 80%. The Nazis have got nothing on what these Soviets were doing. But Orban took the moment to point out that the European Union's hostile reaction to the surging success of these Eurosceptic, nationalistic parties shows that the spirit of Marx, Lenin, and the re-education camps lives on up in Brussels. Orban also took aim at Western Europe, who extol communism, forgetting the millions that had perished under the heel of red dictatorships in the Soviet Union and in Hungary under Soviet occupation. And he says, to this day, the European left continues to see communism and its crimes in a very peculiar, blurred light. Down in Italy, their new nationalistic government is demanding that Europe rip up the existing migrant system and basically start over from scratch. And one of the major reforms they're talking about is that migrants not be allowed to have the benefits of the Schengen system, because migrants will get into any European country and then they move to some place that's really nice, like Germany or Sweden, and that's a problem for Germany and Sweden. So they're saying it's time for a think-over, and that maybe the migrants should be forced to stay in the country that first gives them entry, and that maybe only the outer European Union nations, the ones that actually have the international border, accept migrants, and that the nations on the inside shouldn't have to take them anymore. Italy is also taking Macron to task, saying that he risks being enemy number one on this refugee migration issue. And of course, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Italy has basically said to halt all refugee pickups. It's just over. They can't deal with it. It's a huge increase in population, most of whom don't speak the indigenous language, very few of whom are able to find employment, and they're basically living off the state. They're living off the European taxpayers. Now, between the immigration issue and the economic frictions, we're starting to see a strain of what's called the transatlantic link between the United States and Europe. And the former Prime Minister of France, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, is saying that the security and stability of the Eurasian continent should be guaranteed by a group of 4 countries, France, Germany, Russia, and China, and that the U.S. shouldn't be part of that any longer, that they want to rethink their alliances. Over in Great Britain, something very interesting is happening to the house of Sergei Skripal. Remember the whole thing, oh, it's horrible poisoning. And the government is now buying up Skripal's home and also the home of Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey, who supposedly fell ill after coming into contact with the Novichok. And this is going to cost the British taxpayers roughly £1 million. And they're refusing to give an explanation about why they feel they have to buy these properties. I think it's to prevent somebody from going on in and actually testing with a chemistry set if there is in fact any Novichok on the premises at all. Over in New York City, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is pledging $80 million of his own funds for congressional candidates supporting gun control in the hopes of flipping the House of Representatives accordingly. Now, this may again backfire because earlier in the show we reported how the Democrats are losing the millennial vote, and the gun control appears to be a big part of it. The millennials, they want their guns as much as anybody else. But Bloomberg is out there saying, we got to take the guns, we got to take the guns, we got to take the guns. Well, the British said exactly the same thing at the battles of Lexington and Concord. Didn't work out all that well here. Getting into the world of political correctness, and it does get rather silly. Over in Spain, basically there was this ultra-conservative group that started driving around this bus that was painted on the outside with the slogan, boys have penises, girls have vaginas, don't be fooled. And underneath that was, if you're born a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you will continue to be a woman. And the Madrid City Council ordered the seizure of this bus because it might be offensive to people who really don't know what they are here. Over at mommyunderground.com, they've got an interesting article. According to LGBT activists, mothers aren't needed in this world. And this is a very strange story. Now, there was this woman who became pregnant, and she had the baby. And then she decides she identifies as a man, so she's actually going to court to have herself declared the child's father rather than the mother. And again, this is part of that very aggressive trying to force that agenda on the public. Me, I just say, call yourself a parent. Problem solved. And this one is really weird. Apparently, Pope Francis is instructing the Vatican to make this unprecedented move to pull LGBTQ into the Catholic Church. And this time it's not to set fire to them or anything like that. I guess the Vatican's collection plates are coming up thin from us straights. And so now they're trying to make the church more inclusive. They're a little behind the times. Most churches have already started accepting LGBTQ, which is fine. Claire's church, not a problem with any of that stuff. But But that's definitely out there. I don't think that's going to make the Pope a lot of friends, though, among the traditionalists, the hardliners here. All righty. Now, we've been talking about this problem where boys who identify as girls are now competing in girls' sports and, to nobody's surprise, are winning them. And the end result of this is probably going to be that real biological girls are just going to quit trying because the trans boys are displacing them. What's the point of engaging in a sporting event when you know already you're going to lose? All right. Turning here to a little bit of local news. I was down at a place of business that is on the street where they're building our local section of the Honolulu rail system. And I was asking the proprietor of the business, do you think this thing will ever be finished? And he said no. And if he's right, if it gets abandoned, then we're going to have this hideous concrete thing stretching across the southern shore of Oahu. And there are already people who are very unhappy because they bought or rented homes with a nice view of the Pacific Ocean, and now they've got this concrete slab right in the middle of it. But the real issue is that it has just gone so far over cost. And right now, the Honolulu Rail is the most expensive rail system per capita in world history. The original price tag was $3 billion. It's now up to $13 billion, and they're still not sure if that will cover it. And they've already pulled back the section that was supposed to go into the Ala Moana Shopping Center. Now it's been pulled back to Middle Street, because apparently a single mile of this rail costs $500 million. And the HART board, the Hawaii Area Rapid Transit, is still obstructing a full audit of just where all that money went. There's a couple of grassroots organizations on Oahu saying there needs to be an account. This is a taxpayer-funded project. It should be totally transparent. Why is it a problem trying to get an audit? It's also years behind schedule, and they've had so many problems. Bad design. They designed the supports for the station before the station itself was designed, and they assumed these stations would weigh a certain amount, and it turned out when the design was finalized, they're much heavier. So now the supports are going to have to be buttressed and stiffened and strengthened because they were already built. Those contracts went out. Those contracts for those supports for the stations should not have gone out until the contracts for the stations did. And they've had problems with the pads on the rails that hold the rails on top of the uprights cracking. They've had to replace a bunch of those. They're having to literally replace all of the cars they already purchased because of cracks in the frames. These are, as the name says, it's light rail. These are aluminum cars, and the frame is 4 aluminum I-beams down the floor. And they're cracking. And it turned out it was more expensive to try and dismantle and repair these cars than to just sell them for scrap aluminum and buy all new ones. So it's just gone on and on. It's crazy. Over in Iowa, rather nasty situation. As you know, Iowa is still dealing with a lot of floodwaters from all the snow that we had this last winter. And unfortunately, a 31-car oil train derailed going over a bridge and went right into the floodwaters. 230,000 gallons of oil. And of course, the floodwaters are just spreading it downstream. It's forced evacuations. They're concerned that the drinking water supply in the area may become contaminated. I wonder when was the last time those rails were inspected? Because you got to inspect rails all the time. Train tracks are actually rated for weight and speed. They're not all one size fits all. And some tracks are set up for very heavy transportation. Others, not so much. So we'll see what happens there and why this train derailed, but it's a bad one. Alrighty, let's get into what's going on in the world of computers here. Apparently, Cisco is patching a critical Nexus flaw, and they've got fixes for 34 flaws in their software, including 24 that affect its XOS software for Firepower firewalls and the NXOS software for Nexus switches. So if you have either of those products, you need to see about getting an update. But you know, getting an update's risky. Some of these updates actually break stuff. Nothing is really being thoroughly checked out before it's dumped on the consumers. Anyway, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customers. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think the supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And yes, Republic Broadcasting, and for that matter, whatreallyhappened.com. We do need your support if we're to continue the work that we have been doing for, these many years. And I'm sure that probably John Stadmiller, like me, never thought it would go on this long. when I started this all the way back in 1994, I figured, I'll expose the murder and the government will clean itself up and I'll go back to being a visual effects person. And obviously that did not happen. But if you can help, there's no such thing as too small a donation. And the postal address to send that donation is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. If you would like to call in to make a credit card donation or to pledge to be a recurring subscriber, that number is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 during all others. Checking on my mailbox, somebody just wrote in a clarification about this whole kids being separated from parents. Apparently that began during the Clinton administration, and there was a lawsuit that said separate facilities had to be provided for children, again, because the adult facilities were probably way too dangerous. So that's where it actually all began. Let's take a phone call now from Mateus in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
If I was a gambling man, I would say that the reason that lawsuit got started was probably because of some children being sexually abused in the groups. And then so that's probably why they ended up separating the children. Anyway, in Canada, in Toronto, there's a professor of the Toronto University. He has tenure, and forgot his name, but anybody looking it up would find him. He's a real champion for freedom of speech, and he's really taking on the establishment and opposing this Canadian legislation that's criminalizing not using transgendered pronouns. And so I just really like this guy. He's very man of few words.
Yes.
And he's unemotional, and he just it's the killer in a debate. You would not want to go up against this kind of debate. Just cream you. Excuse me, cream you with 10 words. So I just wanted to show my support for this guy thing. And hey, do you think that politicians, what do you think of this idea that when they swear in their oath of office, do you think they should be hooked up to a lie detector and asked if they would sell their mother for $1?
Well, the problem with sociopaths is they can actually fool lie detectors, because lie detectors only work on people who feel remorse over the fact that they're lying, who have a sense of guilt, and these people just do not.
That's a problem, I guess, with the technology.
Yeah. Well, the lie detector has never been a solid technology anyway. Its results are not admissible in a court of law. There was actually much more success with the voice stress analyzers, but again, that's a technology that politicians don't want to have ordinary Americans to be in possession of, because we'll put that little voice stress analyzer right up next to the television during every political speech, and this actually does detect when they're lying.
Sounds like a good retirement app for you to develop.
Could very well be, but I think the patent is owned by the Central Intelligence Agency.
And if it's not, we just told 100,000 other people, so it's probably lost that opportunity. Hey, I wanted to share this theory with you called the inferior donkey theory. You're familiar with the tension between motorists and bicyclists,
yes.
the serious bicyclists, right? And I don't know how it is where you live, but for here, they're just really not very nice people when they're in that interaction. And so here's the theory: is that before cars were invented, we're all riding around on horses. And if you were to be back in the Wild West and you mosey on into town on a little donkey, you would feel like your ego would take a hit over that. And either you would just have to accept that you're inferior, or else you would put on this big rough attitude to make up for it, be a big tough guy, like a little dog barking loud. So basically, the car, the motorcycle is very clearly the horse in the 21st century. That's pretty straightforward. It's even the same riding dynamics. And the car is just a stronger horse, basically. And so a bicycle that you have to pedal with your feet is like the equivalent of a donkey against a stallion in the Wild West. So these guys are subconsciously have inferiority complexes because they're on little donkeys.
I
And they're
don't
trying to make
see
up
that
for it
here.
with this overinflated
I don't
egos.
see that here. We have a very active biking community. A lot of the roads in Honolulu have dedicated bike lanes, and I'm sorry, I just don't see that. Of course, I live in the land of aloha. There's not as much aloha as there was when Claire and I first moved here. My biggest problem, though, is that the quality of driving cars is really an issue. I don't know what it is about Hawaii drivers, but especially the last couple of years, they're speeding, they're doing reckless things. Claire and I saw somebody run a red light the other day, and it makes driving less fun for us to go on out. Anyway, listen, Mateus, we're going to let you go. Going to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221. Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to take a phone call from Tom in Indiana. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I just wondered if you ever tried to connect the dots with JFK Jr.'s death and Comey and those guys with the CIA, Brennan, and all those people.
Well, I've done a lot of work
nuclear-
on JFK Jr.'s assassination, mostly pointing out that it was an assassination, but the primary motive appears to have been political, because JFK Jr. Was set to announce that he was going to run for the New York Senate seat, eventually held by Hillary Clinton. And obviously, if he'd stepped into the race with his family's name value, he probably would have defeated Hillary Clinton. And so he's flying out there to Martha's Vineyard, and the airplane just sort of happens to fall out of the sky, which unfortunately has happened to a lot of people that the Clintons didn't like.
Yeah, I just wondered, since they already had the nucleus and shows what backstate party they were, is it possible that they probably did this too?
We don't know who the actual players were. And again, it was all covered up and declared to be a tragic accident. But looking back in hindsight, there's definitely reasons to doubt the official story. It wasn't bad weather on the island. I have family that lives on Martha's Vineyard, and they said on the night in question, the weather was clear. They could see the stars. They could see all the way to the mainland, which means anybody up in the air approaching Martha's Vineyard would have had a clear view. They had just installed some new high-powered lights in one of the towns, so there was a ready reference point. And JFK Jr. was flying VFR, but he had completed his training to get his instrument rating. So he was fully capable of in a crunch, using, for example, the Vortac to get himself onto the runway. But he didn't really need to do that. He was a very, very good pilot, and the plane just literally tumbled out of the sky, according to the radar.
And who could be the players that would cover that up and delay a 7-hour search? Who could do that?
Somebody with a lot of political pull. And like I said, my JFK Jr. article is up at the top of the main page of whatreallyhappened.com. It's in that little gray box full of permanent article links, and you can read all about it there.
Thank you, Mike. Aloha.
Aloha. All right, there we go. Getting on back to computers and such, the Pentagon, specifically the U.S. Cyber Command, is now going on the offensive in cyber war. Now, originally, Cyber Command was supposed to protect the U.S. in general, and the Pentagon in particular, from cyber attacks coming from elsewhere. And when you look at the number of ransomware attacks that are going on, Cyber Command isn't doing a very good job about it. But apparently now, Cyber Command is being retasked to basically develop offensive cyber weapons with which to go and mess around with other people's computers. Over in France, they're proposing mandatory labeling for meat and dairy farm animals raised on GMO feed. Not just the GMO products itself, but if the farm animals have been fed on GMO feed, which is very common, that's where a lot of GMO corn goes, they want mandatory labeling on that as well. Now, there's a new study that's out that confirms a common vaccine additive is linked to autism-like behavior. Now, scientists at the University of British Columbia recently concluded studies of how aluminum affected behavior in young rats. And what they found was that rats exposed to aluminum in early life exhibited social symptoms similar to autism, specifically a decreased social interest when compared to normal, non-exposed rats. Now, again, aluminum is already known to be neurotoxic. And you have to wonder, why are they putting it in there? Well, in theory, the purpose of an adjuvant is to irritate your body, to provoke a response so that you will develop antibodies to whatever pathogen is in the vaccine. But some of these vaccine adjuvants are causing problems. One of the worst, of course, is peanut oil, which you are meant to eat, not inject into your veins. And ever since the introduction of peanut oil as a vaccine adjuvant, anaphylactic shock peanut sensitivity has just skyrocketed. So, now, apparently over in North Carolina, the state bar is filing a lawsuit against the nation's leading vaccine rights attorney, Alan Phillips, to force Phillips to hand over years of his client's files or risk being jailed for civil contempt. And it's a witch hunt. Now, obviously, somebody somewhere would like the list of people who have hired Alan over the years. We don't know why, but I don't think it's for a good purpose. It's for another campaign of harassment. And I understand why the vaccine industry is hardlining this, because if it ever came on out that vaccines were harmful, you're looking at lawsuits going back a half century. They'd be out of business. They'd be forced to go bankrupt. They'd be gone here. Now, you've probably heard about this natural anesthetic, if you will. It's called Kratom. And the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration is getting ready to decide whether they want to schedule it and make it illegal. 5 states have already banned the drug, and that is Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Vermont. And this has caused a lot of problems for whom Kratom was helping them. And the purpose of this ban, again, is you're not allowed to grow your own medications. You're not allowed to come up with medicines on your own. You will go to the doctor. You will get a note. You will go to that pharmacy. You will turn over vast sums of money to the pharmaceutical corporations. Now, a lot of people are on Kratom because they don't want to risk the opioids that their doctors are prescribing. And doctors are prescribing like crazy because opium has become very inexpensive to come by ever since Afghanistan. And there are apparently a lot of people in these 5 states who are willing to risk the legal consequences of continuing to use Kratom. And it's another example of government and corporations aligned together against the general population and what's best for us. Their entire thought process is what allows us to take more money away from the American people. And the problem is the American people have all but run out. Not too long ago, we saw this phenomenon where everybody got really caught up in this antibacterial, carrying around lotions, disinfecting your hands all the time. And it really was being sold more as a fashion accessory than a real health aid. In fact, at our local supermarket, you walk in the door, there's a little dispensing stand right there where you can disinfect yourself. And then there's the disinfecting wipes, and it turns out some of those are made with toxic ingredients that are carcinogenic. And it's a very alarming situation, and you do need to think about this. We live in a country where dangerous chemicals are sold in our products with the permission of the government because it's making money. Every once in a while, though, somebody gets caught. And apparently a group of cancer victims have filed a lawsuit against Johnson & Johnson over mesothelioma from the asbestos in talcum powder. And you have to wonder what possessed Johnson & Johnson to put asbestos in the talcum powder to begin with. All right, let's take some phone calls. Fred in Michigan, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Aloha.
Aloha.
Cybersecurity. I was blown away by a presentation on YouTube. A UK journalist over in Tel Aviv with a Telpiat operative with a laptop. The demonstration proceeded with the UK journalist in a current model car, and the Telpiat laptop guy started doing his gig on the laptop, and see the windows coming down, power windows coming down,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see the lights going on and off. Then you see the driver losing control of the steering wheel and
Yes.
losing control of the accelerator. Okay, now Telpiat, I remember seeing on YouTube Jason Gewirtz or something like that, Gewritz, Gewirtz, Gewritz. It's called Israel's Edge, the secret Telpiat program. All right, now you know all about the outsourcing. I'm in Michigan, and I experienced that big time in the 80s with the exodus of Generous Motors. And where did it all wind up? In foreign slave labor countries. Well, America's high-tech industry has now been relocated in Tel Aviv, Israel. And also, the F-35. You mentioned earlier something about, I came in kind of late. You were talking about some aluminum part of some construction.
That was about the Hawaii Light Rail trains. I don't think I've actually mentioned the F-35 in the show, and if I did, it was a passing reference.
No. I'm not intimating that you did that, but I'm just drawing reference to that because what I see happening here relative to AIPAC, and anybody who wants to see the real AIPAC in living color, they can go to YouTube and look up AIPAC, what treason looks like. AIPAC, what treason looks like. And that might be an Alan Sabrowski production, I'm not sure. But, and while they're at it, they should also see Israel did 9/11, all the proof. Israel did 9/11, all the proof. And so, Mike, the F-35, we are told, was just besieged with all sorts of design flaws et al. But I distinctly recall back in January this year, like a one-day report expose that the first squadron of F-35s had arrived in Tel Aviv, and I haven't heard any more since until I saw on YouTube a group of guys. I know you'd be proud of these guys. They actually give reference to you. It's called Telpiat Talk. Telpiat Talk on YouTube. Guy by the name of Jason, I think it's Jason, Joseph Davis out of Memphis.
Okay.
And anyway, they said, they go on, they provide all the evidentiary proof that there's this secret collusion here between the Pentagon and AIPAC and Israel, government of Israel, and all of this secret high-tech transfer operations, okay? So then they disclosed, Mike, did you hear about Senate Bill 2497? It's the Israel-U.S. Security.
Yeah, I did hear about that. And Fred, we're coming up on a commercial break, so I need you to kind of get to the end of the story.
All right, man. Well, all right, I'll leave you with this, man. I saw something called America 2050. Another guy that sort of is your protege, America2050.org. He gave out, this is Grindall, Grindall, Grindall 61, a young guy. Man, they want us to be consolidated, Mike, 6 million of us into 11 mega regions. And each mega region will have like one or two major cities. And the guy asked, well, okay, so we're going to wind up in 2050 with only 66 million people in the entire country of America. Well, what's going to happen to the rest of the 350 million, whatever? Right?
Well, we've got between now and then we've got a world war to get through.
Yeah, right, and other depopulation scams. Okay, bro, thanks.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here, and we're going to start with Brendan in San Francisco, and I'm probably going to have to take you through the commercial break. Brendan, aloha, what's on your mind? Brendan, are you there? We lost him. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the phone lines because we're coming to the end of the show, and I have a few more things to share with you. As you know, the World Cup is still going on, and apparently Mexico scored a win against the World Cup defending champions, Germany. That's the good news. The bad news is that Mexico is going the way of California. They're going into water privatization. And I guess this has been thought about for a long time because it's actually part of the storyline of the James Bond movie Quantum of Solace, that people don't have a natural right to just go find water, that it will be commoditized and sold to you at a steep markup. And after that, I'm sure they're going to do air. Didn't pay your air bill. So it's all about getting more money out of the people for things that we used to take for granted. And that's really what it's all about. When I was a kid, things were there. Food growing on your own property, water coming out of the well. Now it's all owned by corporations. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today here. And there's an interesting little article that came out from the Daily Mail in Great Britain. And it says, electric Teslas may be no greener than petrol, gasoline, and diesel cars, despite being marketed as the world's most environmentally friendly vehicles. And the story is basically that analysts found the amount of greenhouse gas used in building a Tesla and generating the electricity to charge it was no different to petrol cars. Now, I don't know why they're targeting Teslas. This applies to all electric vehicles. And I do think electric vehicles are the way of the future. And when Claire and I had to buy a replacement for our stolen Honda, we did look at some electric vehicles. We couldn't come close to affording them. But they're absolutely right. That electricity has to come from someplace. And for much of the world, that someplace is usually a petroleum-fired electrical generating station, which is what we have here on the island of Hawaii. We used to have a geothermal plant on the Big Island, but that sort of went away. The whole technological paradigm, if you will, is incomplete until electricity can be generated cleanly and safely. Now, we're hearing some interesting news on the forefront of hot fusion research, but it's still a little bit off, a few years down the road. But I do think electric cars are the way to go, and I don't know why they targeted Tesla on this one here. Speaking of our volcano, we had a rather large burp from Kilauea Crater. It sent ash up to 4,500 feet. It registered on the seismographs as a 5.3 quake. And we're actually very lucky up here on Oahu because these earthquakes are so shallow, they don't really conduct here. We haven't felt any of them. I was able to detect them with a homebrew seismograph, but that's it. Unlike the big quake they had some years back that just really rattled everything around here. So, you know, that's a little bit of good news. The U.S. Geological Survey is saying there are no signs that this is slowing down. And even more alarmingly, they're making vague references to a still-to-come major event of some kind. But much of the lava is still pouring out of fissure number 8. It's still more or less following that channel where it's plunging into the ocean. But the eruption is reshaping Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Halemaumau Crater has just collapsed in on itself. A big chunk of the floor of Kilauea is now gone down into, we presume, is the lava conduit. And that there's been some subsidence on the rims of Kilauea Crater itself. So it's going to be a while before they reopen it. They're going to have to survey it and see where it's safe because it is an active volcano system. And the current lava flow from Fissure 8 is 17 miles an hour. So you can't outrun it. Best to just not be there in the first place. All right, that's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. I got to do the Jim Goddard Show up in Vancouver. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know. Talk to them in person. Let's bring back the art of conversation. Use email. Don't bother with Facebook and Google and the rest of it. Twitter, I meant. They're all being filtered. So we'll be back here tomorrow. Aloha, America.